Good day and welcome to another episode of Cellar Chats. I'm Chris. We're here in the cellar at Second Glass, and we've got a Washington state of mind going on this week. That's right. We're heading off to Washington, out the Pacific Northwest. That's Washington, the state, not the city, not DC. And we're gonna take a little visit with our friends Gramercy via a flight of their lovely wines. We're gonna kick it off with a little Picpoul, which is, one of those super tasty, not overly, what's the word I'm looking for? Not something you see all that often, but it is a great wine and super fun. And roll into their Rosé, because that is always a fan favorite around here at the Second Glass. And then round it out with the always lovely Walla Syrah. Let's do this thing. It's still warm outside. It's still summertime, but, I'm dreaming of these hot days transcending into cool, crisp nights, which is probably what they're enjoying in the Pacific Northwest right now. I could be wrong. It could be hot all the time. I don't actually know. But that's how I imagine it, and I like to keep it that way. So we're going to keep it that way, at least for the purposes of this tasting. So let's do this. For those of you who have tuned in more than once, or even once, you likely would have seen us do a Gramercy tasting. Again, first wine up this week on the flight is their Picpoul. Gramercy is, one of those producers that I have always enjoyed long before I was selling the wines myself, and has pretty much been on the list at all of Celeste's restaurants. Back when she had the Fortune glass, I'm pretty sure Gramercy was on there. And it's been on the list here ever since, I can remember. So, always been a go-to. Quick backstory for those who maybe are not familiar. Started by Greg Harrington and his wife Pam. Just lovely, lovely human beings. Greg was, he's a master sommelier. He was one of the early ones to be, to join the ranks of that limited few way back in the day when people did not know what sommeliers were, or the fact that there was masters, or there were no documentaries talking about it. Before somm became a word used by the general public, Greg was part of that elite crew, working for some really amazing people. Notably, he worked for Emerald Lagasse at his restaurants in Louisiana, and then helped him open other restaurants. And then he worked under Wolfgang Puck for a little while, if I remember correctly. And then eventually would start his project in Washington State with his wife. The Gramercy, in case you didn't put it together, is an ode to their time they spent in New York City. They lived near Gramercy Park. And if you look at the logo, that is actually the fence posts that surround the park, Gramercy Park. I was there actually in the spring this year, and walked through Gramercy Park for the first time, and I can convey that is exactly what they look like. They look just like this. Again, that's these guys right there. But anyways, Picpoul, fresh, vibrant. So Picpoul de Pinet, so it's a region in southern France, in the Languedoc along the Mediterranean coast. And Picpoul is a kind of high-acid, bright, fresh wine. It's always classically paired with oysters or fresh seafood. Again, we're near the ocean where this originates from. Here being grown in Washington, and it just kind of goes in line. Greg and his wife both are big fans of, Rhone wines, particularly Syrah and Grenache. But they also make a fair amount of Cabernet, because again, this is Washington State, and Cabernet, albeit other things do really well, Cabernet continues to be one of the king primary grapes of the state. On the nose, really pretty floral, kind of bright, fresh, a little honey melon. Lovely, bright, bracing acidity, but not so much that it hurts, It's that liveliness. And there's almost this kind of peach skin going on that I think is really beautiful, really lovely, easy going. This is such a great way to get your day started, or get your week started, or your weekend. Whenever you come in, it's a good way to get going. Let's put it that way. Oh man, I would drink that any day. Again, that is Gramercy Cellars. Their Picpoul is honestly one of their smallest production wines out at Gramercy. For a long time, we actually we wouldn't get it, or we would only get a handful of cases. Now they've upped production, they've added some plantings, but they still only make about, let's say, 8,000 bottles. No, it's less than that. Sorry, my numbers were off. I read the wrong thing. It's not a lot. Let's just put it that way. Not a lot of wine that they produce from Picpoul. All right. Moving into Rosé, which I think is truly the darling of Gramercy Cellars. You know, they're definitely known for their red wines, particularly for their Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignons. But the Rosé, I think, is the one that everyone who works with Gramercy Cellars will say, this is the wine we wait for and can't get enough of, because every year it is a standout. Inspired by Provence, you know, style Rosés, it's Grenache, Cinsault, and Syrah. Always this beautiful, beautiful color, just delicately pink rose, little salmon hue. Oh, wow. Pretty red fruits, a little raspberry, strawberry on the nose. I know that's your favorite part of the video. You watch the video and you go, I really like watching Chris swish around wine. That's why I tune in. You know, this is why if you ever listen to podcasts, like most of them don't drink wine on the air, because watching somebody taste wine is one thing, but just listening to somebody swish around is sort of off-putting. It's one of those things. Again, sorry, went off on a little diatribe there. I'm just very aware of the fact that when people watch this, they're witnessing me swish around wine in my mouth before I taste it and then talk about it. But it's a necessary evil. Got to do it. That's how you get there. On the palate, it is so juicy, so pretty. This is one of those rosés that for me, every year, like, it comes out early spring. It's always beautiful upon release, but around this time is really when it starts to get into its own. It starts really showcasing all the pretty fruit notes, the texture, the qualities. A little more texture than the Picpoul, a little less acidity, but like in the best way possible. So good. And coming off last week's Rosé flight that we did here, it's a completely different experience. Such a fun wine. All right, again, that is Gramercy Cellars, their Rosé from the Olsen Vineyard. Such good stuff. You're killing it out there, guys. All right, last but not least, Walla Syrah. So Gramercy is located specifically within the Columbia Valley, but they do a lot of work in the Walla, which is a sub-AVA of Columbia Valley. One that's highly regarded, particularly for their Rhone varieties. So they do a lot of work with Syrah and Grenache and Walla. Oh, wow. Again, still hot outside. We're thinking Syrah. It's going to be big. It's going to be heavy. This is still delicate and light on its feet with squeaky corks. With a lot of freshness, but it's got those savory herbs that just kind of hint at like the fact that it's going to get cooler soon. You know, it's sort of like when you wake up in the morning, for me, this morning, I woke up, went outside, and I was like, man, it's really lovely out here. Like, I wasn't like hit by like an intense wave of heat and humidity. Like, you know, pre 8:30, it was pretty nice outside. So fall is coming. We're going to get a break. And this wine is another little teaser that we're going to get to a point where it's not so hot all the time. And we're going to have that really nice kind of unicorn weather for a short period of time. On the nose, rich, dark, kind of plummy blackberry fruits. Yeah, again, really lovely, like, definitely you can taste it's done in oak. There's a little bit of new oak used here. You've got that ripeness of the new oak and of the fruit, but it's not overdone. It's still delicate and still like, you know, very gentle touches of that oak nuance. Good freshness. It's not in any way heavy to me. Like, it's full flavored, but not heavy on my palate, which I think makes it such a great wine for this time of year. When you know, in the evening it isn't quite as hot and we can enjoy a glass of red wine and not feel like maybe we're, you know, drinking a fire. Wow, such a pretty wine. Again, Gramercy Cellars this week. Lovely lineup. We'll do something new. We're just going to grab this because, you know, it's on a phone. So I can, boom, look at that. We can do that. We'll mix it up. See if we can do some movement these days. Celeste wheeling and dealing, doing the thing back there. So Gramercy Cellars this week, guys. Great flights. Thank you for tuning in. Please come out, support, grab flights. If you haven't already, you should have seen that Second Last has a wine dinner coming up next week. I think there's some tickets available. If you're interested, you should check that out. And I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much.